For most ponies involved in musical talents, an ideal home would be a place of refuge, a place to retreat to in order to clear their heads. Nice, quiet, remote. Just a plain old-fashioned silent house. If they had to share the house with one another, then roommates it was. In order for them to live under one roof, the two would have to get along for starters, and of course respect one another's antics no matter how different and strange they appear. This was the case for two of Ponyville's most talented musicians. Octavia, a gray earth pony who was raised in Canterlot, but moved to the lively town when she wanted a change in what she considered to be a nice but plain life in the city. Her mastery of the cello landed her a spot in the orchestra, and she couldn't have been more pleased with her position. Yes, Octavia seemed to have it made. A chance to perform, a new place to live, and the chance to start over from an average life. Little did she know that what she thought was a small step turned into something she hadn't bargained for. Her roommate was a white unicorn from the noisy city of Manhattan, named Vinyl Scratch. Unlike Octavia's strict upper-class attitude she had inherited, Vinyl's was anything but that. Just like the city she grew up in, she too was loud and proud. She would walk around town with her headphones on, listening to what sounded like constant beeps and heavy bass. Octavia would soon learn that the nightlife her roommate was accustomed to was unlikely to change. At first, when Vinyl told her that she too was a musician, she thought it meant that she played an instrument she was familiar with, like a guitar. But when she called herself by her stage name, DJ Pone 3, she didn't know what to expect. Her curiosity ended a week after, when she was awakened by the loudest siren she had ever heard. Every morning after that, she went down with tired eyes to discover Vinyl sitting next to a desk that had a black square resting on it. She continued to bob her head up and down as she turned a few dials. Octavia approached her as the sound of rhythmic taps increased in volume. Vinyl's setup included speakers that she had connected to the square, carrying the noise further. Vinyl, can you hear? Of course she couldn't. With those headphones on and her noisemaker's volume reaching its peak, it was a wonder how she could have noticed her advancing forward. Reaching her hoof out, Octavia tapped on the device to grab the DJ's attention before it was too late. Vinyl looked at her roommate with a pleasant smile. Octavia continued to speak while using her hoof gestures as backup. Vinyl's burgundy eyes followed every motion, and she took off her headphones when Octavia had finished. The sounds coming from the speakers stopped. "Oh, thanks, Celestia," Octavia said, relieved. "Thank you for understanding, Vinyl. Hey!" Vinyl led Octavia back to her bedroom and sat her down on the comforter. She then levitated the covers over the speechless earth pony and backed out of the room, closing the door behind her softly. Octavia could hear her roommate's hoofsteps as she returned to her setup. The covers sank as the cellist placed her hooves over her ears, trying to block out the noise coming from outside her room. This routine didn't change in the slightest in the months following. By the time the holidays came around, Octavia had to endure the constant sounds emitting from Vinyl's device, along with a piano that she had brought in one day after the rest of her belongings arrived. Octavia still played her cello in her own room, but the music coming from her end wasn't enough to drown out the DJs. With only days remaining until she, along with the rest of her orchestra, had a concert to attend, she had to be ready. Not even Vinyl's music would stop her from preparing. At this point, Vinyl had already attended several events, and each time, Octavia was invited. Sure, she could have gone, but to waste any moment of silence was unthinkable. Vinyl had even started to call her Octi, or Tavy, nicknames she wasn't accustomed to. Octavia had visited her mother once after the move, and she had proposed for her to move out and find someplace else. Octavia refused that option. She had already spent a lot of bits on the house, and wasn't going to let it be for nothing. She would have to deal with her roommate and her ways, and hopefully learn to tune out her antics. It was working so far. No, she would stand her ground. There was no way she would run off and let the DJ win. The next day, the weather Pegasi announced that there would be a snowfall at some point during the night. With all the craziness going on in her house, Octavia had completely forgotten that heartwarming eve was just around the corner. She planned to spend the day shopping for gifts and be back in time to get ready for the concert. Before she left, she told Vinyl where she was going. Not that it would matter, though. Her roommate was still preoccupied, adjusting her device for the umpteenth time. The tunes, or wubs, as she loved to call them, could be heard even with her headphones on. When Octavia came back, it was late in the afternoon. She expected to be knocked over from a heavy bass drop once she opened the door. Instead, the house was unexpectedly quiet. Vinyl? Octavia called out to the supposedly empty house. She set her gifts down and approached the DJ's setup. How was Vinyl able to know how to work something with this many dials and adjustments? Octavia had to admit, she had no idea how hard it now seemed. Vinyl made it look easy. Smiling, she thought maybe she should be more open to her roommate's ways. They are, after all, living together. Perhaps once her concert was over, she would attend one of Vinyl's events. She headed over to her room when she heard the sound of magic going off from the other side of the door. Seeing that the door was cracked, she nudged it open with her hoof, and saw Vinyl putting something away that looked a lot like... "What are you doing with my cello?" Vinyl jumped. "Tavy!" she exclaimed nervously. "What brings you back so soon?" "It's the middle of the afternoon," said Octavia, raising an eyebrow. "Have you been playing with your box this whole time? Wait, Tavy?" "Yeah, I've been calling you that for some time now. It's the second name I gave you after Octi, remember?" Octavia tried to see the cello that Vinyl was hiding from sight. "Ah, of course not. We're both very busy after all with our music. Yep, just two musicians working our hardest day and night." "Vinyl, why are you hiding my cello?" Octavia asked, starting to get suspicious. "Your cello?" questioned Vinyl, starting to sweat. "Yes, I can see it behind your back." "Oh, I was just borrowing it for some extra tunes is all. I was just about to put it back." She placed the case on the bed and made to leave. Right before she had placed her hoof outside the bedroom, Octavia's voice stopped her. "Vinyl, what happened?" There was something in her voice that made a chill run down the DJ's back. Octavia stared down at her finely beaten instrument. Its strings were broken, and the bout was snapped in half. "I might have gotten a little overenthusiastic." "What did you do? What did you do?" asked Octavia, still looking down at the damage. "Okay, Octi, I'm so sorry. Honest, I didn't mean to. I just got carried away is all, and you know how we musicians can get when we're into our music, right?" Octavia didn't respond. She held the cello in her hooves and attempted to play a single note, but the string she struck snapped. "Don't worry," Vinyl chimed, stepping forward with her horn glowing. "I can fix it. Now, what was that mending spell again?" "Get out," Octavia said, placing the broken instrument down. Vinyl didn't appear to hear her. "Ah, that's right. Step back, Octi. I got this." "I said get out!" Octavia spun around, pointing the bow at her roommate, who started to back away. "Now, I know it looks bad, but if you give me a minute, I promise it will look as good as... Stop! Just stop already!" Vinyl stood where she was. Never had she seen the cellist this angry. Okay, sure, at times she could have sworn a nerve twitched every now and then, but she thought that was because of something else. Octavia's vision began to blur as her purple eyes began to water. Still, she went on with her rant. "What did you think you were doing, Vinyl? Did it ever occur to you that maybe you should ask before you take other ponies' things?" "Well, yes, but you see, I was..." "Do you even know how to play the cello?" "A little here and there." "And what in Celestia's name made you go so over the moon that you had to break it?" "I'm sorry!" shouted Vinyl, taking even herself by surprise. Her burgundy eyes stared into the hate-filled purple ones. "You knew I had a concert coming up," said Octavia, wiping her eyes. I told you numerous times, but were you even listening? Vinyl's ears dropped. Octi, Octavia lifted a hoof to silence her roommate. She then placed it on her forehead and sighed. I got a concert to get to. What if I... You've done enough already. And with that, Octavia left the house, closing the door behind her. Vinyl watched from the window, her head lowering. She noticed the bags Octavia had brought in and looked inside. Sighing, the DJ went back to her setup and tried to pick up where she had left off. Once she had finished her track, she placed it along with a note and present she was holding onto until the time was right inside Octavia's room.